Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of my new Thameslink series. In this series, I'll be delving into the history of Thameslink, its operators since privatisation, and the current state of the railway. The Thameslink network currently links several major towns and cities to one another, passing through central London. The core, from Blackfriars to St Pancras International, is one of the busiest mainline routes in the UK, with up to 19 trains per hour in each direction passing through the core in the peak hours. But how do we get here from an abandoned railway to this frequent rail service in under 40 years? That's what this series will look at. Today's episode will take us from the origins of the Thameslink network through to March 2006, when the first private operator, named Thameslink, ceased operations. We'll be looking at whether this operator was a success or not. In the subsequent episodes, we'll be looking at first Capital Connect, a remaster from a previous video I made on them, and then finally the current Thameslink operator, as well as a deep dive into the Thameslink programme. If you enjoy this episode and the subsequent series, do consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and potentially joining my membership or Patreon from as little as 99p a month to support my work. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the video. The idea of a north-south railway in London was not a new idea by the 1980s. The London, Chatham and Dover Railway opened the Snow Hill Tunnel in 1866, linking what is today City Thameslink to Farringdon, running below Smithfield Market, which created a freight link for the line. Passenger services commenced on January 3rd, 1866, from Blackfriars Bridge to Farringdon. A station was later opened in the tunnel, called Snow Hill, in 1874, to link with Holborn Viaduct Station, with the station later being known as Holborn Viaduct Low Level. Ludgate Hill was the only other station on the line, which ran beneath King's Cross and St Pancras, and was never heavily used, despite being the only north-south link in the city. Trains ran slow and were never very frequent, despite a new link of track in 1871, enabling trains to terminate at Moorgate. Most services terminated at Ludgate Hill or the newly linked Moorgate station, so the possibilities of long-distance north-south services never initially materialised. Snow Hill Station and a small curve of track known as the Smithfield Curve closed in 1916, with passenger services withdrawn during World War I due to cost constraints and competition from electric trams, with these services never reinstated, resulting in the closure of Ludgate Hill in 1929, with all services terminating at Holborn Viaduct instead. Goods traffic were the last trains to use the original line, which ran until March 24th, 1969, when British Rail ceased all services through the Snow Hill Tunnel, culminating in the through platforms at Blackfriars closing. British Rail suggested the reason for the closure was mainly due to competition from road transport, with the tracks being lifted in May 1971. However, the newly formed Network South East from 1986 culminated in the conjunction of several different divisions of London's commuter rail network, allowing for integration of the network for the first time. Usually, the different divisions, for example the Southern and Great Western divisions, would not interfere or integrate, with the divisions being mostly isolated from one another due to the complexities in integrating timetables. Network South East and the rise of the modern computer allowed for greater integration with timetabling. The first signs of a cross-city railway came when the Midland Main Line was electrified up to Bedford, allowing Class 317s to operate services into Moorgate via St Pancras in 1983, which meant that if the gap between Blackfriars and Farringdon was reopened and electrified, the line all the way from Bedford to Brighton would be electrified, albeit by third rail combined with overhead electrification. This belief was turned into reality in 1986, when Thatcher's government allocated £4 million, with the Greater London Council contributing £1.4 million to the reopening of the Blackfriars to Farringdon line through the Snow Hill Tunnel, with the name of Thameslink given to the new line. A new station would be opened known as City Thameslink, initially called St Paul's, and opened in 1990, with King's Cross Thameslink being rebuilt and renamed from King's Cross Midland City, whilst the widened lines to Moorgate, Barbican and Farringdon would be electrified and upgraded. The whole line would be electrified, with City Thameslink being the changeover location for dual voltage. South of City Thameslink, trains would run on third rail. North of it, they would run on overhead power. The money would not include the new dual voltage rolling stock, as this was deemed a necessary investment regardless of the new line, with new rolling stock desperately needed to replace the oldest electric slam door units. The trains which were chosen by British Rail would be the Class 319s. These trains would be capable of running on the 25 kV AC overhead electric lines north and the 750-volt DC lines south. Built by BRAL from 1987 at their York Holgate Road works, they would be designed with similar body shells to the Class 317s and 318s to ensure that they could fit in the King's Cross Tunnel. The trains would be 4 carriages, with all the new Thameslink stations and infrastructure between Bedford and Brighton upgraded to accommodate 8-car trains. 60 sets would be built for Thameslink initially. The new service commenced in May 1988, with King's Cross Midland City being renamed and rebuilt to King's Cross Thameslink, along with upgrades at Farringdon, Barbican and Moorgate. The service was originally a mere 4 trains an hour, with 6 trains an hour for 1 hour during the peak. The service was also not especially quick, due to the large layover and parving times in the core section to make up for any potential delays upon entering the core. Regardless, the service was a huge success with passengers, and it was increasingly clear that, right from the off, there would be passenger demand for other services to other destinations, as well as more frequent trains. There was also the capacity to increase services. Services could be taken from the soon-to-be-closed Holborn Viaduct station from the south, whilst the Midland Main Line had plenty of capacity, with the 319 superior acceleration a good match for the HSTs, which had recently transferred to St Pancras. The lack of any other commuter service out of St Pancras, and lack of Eurostar or South Eastern High Speed at the time, meant that there was plenty of Midland Main Line capacity for Thameslink to expand. The 1990s saw this extra expansion, with new services to Sutton via the Wimbledon Loop and Elephant and Castle commencing, to increase the number of services through the core, but this was still not enough to ease high passenger demand. Thameslink was today's Crossrail. Hence, British rail managers and later Railtrack during privatisation drew up plans for a new upgrade to Thameslink known as Thameslink 2000. British Rail wanted to increase the number of stations on Thameslink from 50 to 169, including services to stations such as Horsham, Littlehampton, Eastbourne, Guildford, Ashford, Dartford, Kings Lynn and Peterborough. All the Thameslink stations would be rebuilt to accommodate 12-car trains, with King's Cross station being closed and relocated to under St Pancras due to a lack of capacity and space for platform extensions. The station also did not have step-free access, did not have enough emergency exits, and would be unable to cope with the huge passenger increases the extra services, up to 24 trains per hour, would bring. A new station at St Pancras would not only allow for quick interchange to the proposed HS1 line, but would also mean the tube lines would not be disrupted by construction works, which would be the case if King's Cross Thameslink was rebuilt. The project, as linked with the name, would be completed by 2000, but John Major's privatisation of the rail network, as well as a recession, meant that the completion date would be pushed back, with no formal permission given to the construction of the Thameslink 2000 upgrade prior to 2000, with it subsequently being renamed to the Thameslink Programme. Privatisation meant that Thameslink would have to be privatised. Instead of giving operations to one of the other commuter London franchises, such as the South Central franchise, Thameslink was to be its own franchise. The franchise was won by Govia, who would operate 26 stations, call it 56, and inherit 66 Class 319s on a 7-year deal from March 1997 to March 2004. The company would be simply branded as Thameslink, with a royal blue and yellow livery adopted. The company did receive negative backlash in January 2000 after fining Cherry Booth, a 45-year-old barrister, 4 months pregnant, on her way to her first case as a criminal judge, for being unable to purchase a ticket from the faulty ticket machines and ticket offices which were not open at Blackfriars. Also known as Lady Blair, married to the Prime Minister, she received a whopping £10 fine, with some of Labour jokingly blaming Gordon Brown for blocking Blair joining the euro, with Chevy having euros on her following her trip abroad, but no pounds, with others blaming John Prescott, the Deputy Prime Minister and head of the Department for Transport, for not having ticket offices open at the time. Regardless, Chevy paid the £10 penalty fare and the £9.70 return fare, with Thameslink highlighting how anyone, including the Prime Minister's wife, had to pay their fare. In February 2001, Thameslink launched a new community partnership along the Wimbledon Loop line, spearheaded by Thameslink route manager Martin McCormack. The partnership would help local schools design murals for stations along the line, with funds raised going to new books and stationery at the local schools. By this stage, the proposals for the Thameslink programme had shifted to Railtrack, but it would be the London and Continental Railway Company, who were building HS1, who could have potentially thrown the programme off the rails. With the St Pancras HS1 upgrade came the construction of a concrete box, which would one day house a new St Pancras Thameslink station, but the LCR company were £1.2 billion short of the necessary funds to complete the new line and the concrete box at St Pancras. Some wondered whether the new Thameslink box would be shelved, potentially making the whole programme null and void, but luckily the government provided the extra funding, including that for the Thameslink programme at St Pancras. During this period, in the late 1990s, Railtrack carried out several consultations regarding the Thameslink programme, with the first public inquiry by the Deputy Prime Minister taken in June 2000. During this period, in 2002, Thameslink hired 2 Class 317s from West Anglia Great Northern for services to Moorgate, before receiving extra Class 319s from Southern in 2004, taking their total number of 319s to 74. By 2003, the Thameslink project had received a major setback. Despite promising upgrades to capacity and taking away some terminating King's Cross services, which would potentially allow for more East Coast intercity services to run, the government consultation by the Deputy Prime Minister led to the rejection of the now Network Rail plan, meaning that Network Rail would have to go back to the drawing board and reapply, a process that would mean the target of finishing by 2008 would be just a dream. The Strategic Rail Authority deemed the rejection a puzzling and disappointing decision, with the government saying new proposals would have to be submitted, with there being 3 areas which would need extra improvements: London Bridge, London Blackfriars, and issues to do with listed buildings near Borough. Network Rail's new plan would outline an upgrade to London Bridge, new ticket office buildings at Blackfriars, and upgrades to the signalling system, as well as brand new rolling stock to provide the much enhanced service, with the Bombardier Electrostar and Siemens Desiro trains being potential units the government could go for. There were concerns that services on the Great Northern routes from King's Cross may not be moved to Thameslink, which would reduce connectivity for stations out of King's Cross and reduce capacity out of King's Cross itself. Back to Thameslink as a company though, with, in February 2003, controversy striking the firm after a passenger with sore legs was fined for sitting in first class without a first class ticket due to the train being too overcrowded. Catherine McNeil from St Albans said that Thameslink, similar to Chiltern, should scrap first class to install more standard class seats, with Catherine stating her fine was unjust due to the lack of available seats and her poor health conditions. Regardless, the court found her guilty, with Thameslink saying that they would never guarantee passengers a seat in standard class, which is something that the passenger terms and conditions of carriage stated. Thameslink also confirmed that first class would remain on their trains, with the firm hopeful of reducing overcrowding with the future Thameslink programme. By March 2004, Thameslink were given a 2-year extension to their franchise until 2006. 2004 also saw Thameslink hire 7 Class 317s from West Anglia Great Northern until mid-2005 to operate from Bedford to St Pancras. The reason being was that approval of the new St Pancras Thameslink station had been granted, with construction beginning in September 2004, with the line from St Pancras to Blackfriars severed for 6 months. Approval for the whole Thameslink programme, including signalling upgrades and the new rolling stock, was yet to be given, but the second public inquiry would be held from December 2005 until October 2006, which would signify whether or not the full project would get the green light. Transport for London, back in 2004, had inquired regarding converting Thameslink into parts of its London Overground network. The Overground would significantly bolster services in the core with new trains and would benefit from TfL's funding, but the routes to Cambridge, Kings Lynn, Ashford, Littlehampton and Eastbourne would have been abandoned, with improvements only helping those on the commute about 20 miles from London. April 2005 saw the Department for Transport shortlist 5 new bidders for the Thameslink and Great Northern franchise. The new franchise would see West Anglia Great Northern services merged with Thameslink to better integrate the potential Thameslink programme, with National Express, First Group, Stagecoach, MTR and EWS and Danish Railways being shortlisted for the new franchise, with Govia not reapplying, guaranteeing a new operator. However, Thameslink still had life left in them, with, in May 2005, a new refurbishment launched of the Class 319s, with reupholstered seats, redecorated toilets with anti-vandal paint, new tables in first class, new automatic door gear and upgraded traction motors being installed. The trains would receive a new silver and blue livery, which was first carried by 319-455. Elsewhere in September, chilling footage emerged of 3 of the 4 suicide bombers in the July 7 attacks on London. It emerged that they had used Thameslink from Luton to London to carry out the attack, with several dummy runs staged in new CCTV footage released by the police, with the 7/7 attacks killing 52 people. In November, a passenger called Jenny Bainton revealed she would be suing Thameslink for their lack of grit on platforms. At Elstree and Borehamwood, Jenny slipped on ice and fell under a train, having to be rescued by other passengers. A similar incident happened to Jenny's friend's sister, with Thameslink stating that ice indicators and gritting procedures had been rolled out across the network, but clearly something went wrong that day. December 2005 saw the announcement by the DfT that First Group had been chosen for the new Thameslink and Great Northern franchise from the 1st of April 2006. First would invest £40 million over 3 years on the refurbishment of the Class 319s, improve reliability, enhance station infrastructure, and 600 new parking spaces, whilst also coming up with a report as to whether services to Cambridge and Peterborough could be provided on the Thameslink route. First Group would name the company First Capital Connect, with the Thameslink name dropped for the first time since its inception in 1988. Further news in February 2006 on the new St Pancras station saw it be confirmed that the new station would be opened by December of that year. The DfT confirmed that the final lot of funding would be made available for the completion of the new station. Just over a month later, and Thameslink was no more, as on the 1st of April 2006, it was replaced by First Capital Connect, who hoped to see through the Thameslink programme, although it had still not been given the formal approval by 2006. Anyway, can we deem Thameslink, from 1988 to privatisation, and then the first private company until 2006, a success? Well, the reopening of Thameslink, for a little over £5 million, can be deemed a huge success, with North and South London finally linked by a railway once again. The Class 319s, although we have not talked about them that much, were a success for reliability and passenger comfort, but did not have the capacity to keep up with the unprecedented demand of Thameslink. Thameslink, the operator, didn't do that much, but helped to gear up the company ready for the future Thameslink programme under First Capital Connect, with, overall, privatisation being a real hindrance for Thameslink. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode in my new Thameslink mini-series. In the next episode, we'll look at First Capital Connect, but in the meantime, do consider liking and subscribing if you've enjoyed this video. Also, huge thanks to my members, including First Class members Callum Martin Bell and Crispin McKee, Business Owned members Andrew Bowen, Anthony Harris, Anthony James Moore, ARK, Conor Grieg, Clive Travel Trains, Craig Mitchell 43, Dave CDF, Gordon Walker, Jay Teco, JBNEL, Lewis C21, NJTE, Real, and That Transport Girl, as well as my standard premium members and standard members. Get your name on this list from as little as £2.99 a month, and support me from as little as 99p a month for early access to videos and other exclusive perks. I really appreciate your support and it helps me hugely, so thank you. Once again, thanks for watching. Do join my Discord server and follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. Links all in the description. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.